Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. Got another Master Duel video for you. So, we are coming to yet another Spright variant. This one is one that I had an idea for some time ago, but I just never really acted on it. But, of course, by not acting on it, somebody else ended up beating me to the punch. It was actually one of our viewers on a recent stream. It was Never in My Life, that's who it was. Never in My Life showed off a game on a recent stream where they were playing Prank-Kids Spright, and I was like, you know what? I just want to play this deck now, too. So, the idea behind this deck, you might be wondering, well, why would you want to play Prank-Kids with Spright? What do they actually have in common? Only one of them is level 2, but it actually doesn't matter which Prank-Kids you open with, because they can always lead to the level 2 Prank-Kid, the Dropsies. And, in fact, a Prank-Kid monster opening any one of them or Prank-Kid's place in your opening hand is a one-card combo line to a full Spright board. And I do mean full. That's Elf, IP, the Melffy setup, so the Melffy Catty, or is it Melffy Catty on board, as well as Red or Carrot. And it's actually better than a one-card combo. It's a quote-unquote zero-card combo because, you know what, actually, I don't normally do this during a deck profile, but I think this will actually be easier to show rather than explain. So let's see if we can get a hand in solo mode that opens any one Prank-Kids monster. Ideally not Rocksies, because ideally you do want to summon that one second. I'm going to show you why here in just a moment, but let's see what we got here. Okay, you know what? It could even be Dropsies. It doesn't matter. But you know what? We also have place, so I think just to like further emphasize my point, I'm going to use place and I'll even add the Lampsies. So again, you could start with Prank-Kids Lampsies, or a non-level 2 Prank-Kids monster, and nothing else at all, and you will still end up with a full Prank-Kids board. I'm going to show you how. Or a full Spright board, rather. I would hope a Prank-Kids monster leads to a Prank-Kids board, but believe it or not, it's actually going to lead to a Spright board here. So, I'm going to start by normal summoning the Prank-Kids Lampsies, and we're going to go ahead and link that off for the Prank-Kids Meow-Meow-Mu. Now we get to activate the Lampsies effect in order to summon a Prank-Kid from our deck. You might be thinking, oh yeah, now you summon the level 2 and you can go into plays. No, actually. We're going to summon Rocksies. Like I alluded to just a moment ago, Prank-Kids Rocksies is the one you always want to summon second, and this is how we get our card back, making this a quote-unquote zero-card combo. So, and again, I know it's not actually 0 cards. You do have to start with the Prank-Kid. It's just a full board, and you also have 5 cards in hand at the end of it. So, we're going to link off Meow-Meow-Mu and Rocksies for the Prank-Kids Dodo-Doodle-Do. And now we get to activate both effects, but we want to activate them in a very specific order. I'm going to do Rocksies Chainlink 1, and then Dodo-Doodle-Do Chainlink 2. This will chain block the Rocksies, although to be fair, if your opponent had an Ash or a Gamma, they probably would have used it against the first Prank-Kid. But more importantly, Chainlink 2 Prank-Kids Dodo-Doodle-Do will resolve first, adding the extra Prank-Kids place. But even if you haven't activated place yet, you really don't need multiple Prank-Kids monsters in hand. You only need the one to get your play started. So what you can do is you can use Rocksies as Chainlink 1 to banish that place that you just added, and then you get to draw a card. So you get a free draw, and you don't even have to give up anything in your hand. You get to just banish the place that you searched that doesn't do anything that turn anyway. So that's why I've been calling this, again, a 0-card combo, which I know it's actually not, but you know what I mean. So now we get to summon out the Prank-Kids Dropsies, and believe it or not, this is going to, by itself, still lead to a full Spright board. I'm going to go ahead and link off the Dropsies and the Dodo-Doodle-Do for the Spright Sprind. Now, because we're playing the Nimble engine, I get to use Sprind's effect in order to go into the Nimbles by sending the Angler and using its effect to summon out a couple of copies of Sunfish here. You don't have to play the Nimble engine for Prank Spright to work. You could just go straight into the Gigantic, but doing it this way will get you an extra body on the board. So, alright, now we get to summon out the Gigantic. Gigantic F, we'll use that. Detaching the material in order to summon out Spright Blue. Now, Blue F will activate for who else but good old Jet. And then we can throw down the Jet and use Jet's effect in order to add the starter. Okay, now let's go ahead and make Elf. Let's just use these two, sure. Can use Elf to bring back one of our 2s. I'll bring back one of the water ones. Well, we don't even have the dark ones in the graveyard, but still nice to bring back the water ones in case they are on Bestials there. Now we get to overlay for the Melffy of the Forest. Melffy of the Forest effect will activate. We can detach one of the materials and add that Melffy Catty to our hand. Alright, and then from here we can link off the remaining blue and Melffy of the Forest for good old IP Masquerena. We can use Starter to grab either Red or Carrot. I mean, it's debatable which one, generally speaking, is, like, better, quote-unquote. I usually go for Red if I am in a completely blind matchup, but... And then end phase, we get to summon out the Catty. And there you go. This is, again, a full Spright board here with 5 cards in hand still. And that was all off of one Prank-Kids Lampsies, not even the level 2 Dropsies, right? So again, I have to emphasize this point that literally any one of the Prank-Kids will end you on a full Spright board. So when you think about it from that angle, and look at Prank-Kids, because see, here's the way I look at a deck like Prank-Kids Spright, right? I mean, yeah, this is definitely jamming another engine in with Spright, but this, for all intents and purposes, is a pure Spright deck. The type of boards you'll end on, and the majority of the plays that you're going to make are going to be pure Spright plays. It's just the fact that they all happen to be facilitated by the Dropsies. Or not the Dropsies in particular, but by the Prank-Kids as a whole. The Prank-Kids engine is also very nice, even if you have, like, Starter. Like, let's say you open a Prank-Kid plus a Spright Starter, that's completely fine, because the Prank-Kids line will not only bait out stuff like Ash Blossom, you could even get nibbed, right? Like, your opponent could even drop a Nibiru in the middle of the Prank-Kids line, and then you could just go like, alright, activate Starter. It's really cool, it's really sick. I think that this kind of variant of Spright is... I don't know, it's funny, because I've said this before in videos and on stream, but, like, I just think back to this stream comment I got a little while ago that's like, oh, all Spright builds nowadays are so cope. And it's like, I don't know, I could definitely see somebody looking at a list like this and thinking, oh, this list is cope, what are you doing with these Prank-Kids cards? But the Prank-Kids cards add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 one-card starters to Spright, on top of the limited Nimble Beaver and semi-limited Spright Starters. So I think a lot of people are kind of have this idea that, like, Spright is dead because a lot of its stuff is hit. Therefore, if you're trying to play the pure Spright line at all, that is cope. And I have always been against these kind of anti-intellectual sort of takes. I think it's, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to explore new lines. And it's something that Yu-Gi-Oh! Players like to talk up in theory, but in practice will always shoot down, right? Like, how often do you see people saying, like, I wish there were more of these cool off-meta decks that were doing interesting things that, like, nobody else is really doing right now because the meta is so stale. But when something like that comes up, and even when it does do well, people just say, like, oh, this list is so cope. Oh, if this won a tournament, it had to be all bad players. It's like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Players have this penchant to be... It feels like, to me, a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Players who make these kind of statements are, like, determined to be miserable. Or even if you try to prove them wrong, they'll just shut it down so that way they can continue to complain about the game. That's my gist. But anyway. There's your rants per video right there. But anyway, talking about Prank-Kids Spright in particular, it's really cool that the Prank-Kids can add so much consistency to this kind of a strategy, right? Now, I will say, the drawback of using Prank-Kids in this way is, in fact, having too much of a good thing. While each individual Prank-Kid is a one-card, quote-unquote, zero-card line to a full Spright board, opening multiple Prank-Kids monsters actually doesn't do anything for you. In fact, the multiple Prank-Kids monsters end up being a bit of a brick. So, like, yeah, you could jam, like, 3 of all the Prank-Kids in 3 place, and then you would have 15 one-card starters. But then you'd also be opening a lot of hands with multiple Prank-Kids cards. And again, multiple Prank-Kids cards actually don't really do anything in hand, which is, again, the drawback of an engine like this. Too much of a good thing and whatnot. Although the Prank-Kids line also does only eat 2 extra deck slots, we do kind of feel that as well. In a perfect world, I'd love to have an Onibimaru Soul Sweeper and a Spright, a Melffy. What is the Melffy Synchro card? The level 4 Melffy Synchro is very good in addition to Herald of the Arclight, so yeah, we're hurting for a little bit of the flex spots with the Prank-Kids monsters in the extra deck, but it's only 2 slots, and I think it's worth it. I think it is worth it to, again, if you're going for this kind of like a pure Spright sort of a strategy, I think it can be worth it to give up your 2 extra deck slots to have a bunch of 1-card starters. Now, to be fair, because we are playing all of these Prank-Kids cards, we also have less room for stuff like droll, like just general like disruption. Which Spright, that is kind of one of its strengths, is that it can play a lot of disruption because it has a lot of non-engine. But at the same time, the deck is also really inconsistent right now because it has a lot of non-engine. So I think adding more engine, or rather cards that very much boost the consistency of the engine, is ideal as opposed to jamming in more disruption. But I could be wrong. This is definitely the kind of deck that would need a lot of testing behind it in order to fully flesh out this sort of idea. But this deck was sick. I had a ton of fun playing it, and we're going to show us some really, really cool games with this build here. But before we do that, let me first break this list down card by card for you. So we are on 1 Prank-Kids Fansies, 3 Nimble Sunfish, 3 Maxx, 2 Nimble Angler, 1 Nimble Beaver, 3 Prank-Kids Dropsies, 1 Melffy Catty, 2 Spright Blue, 1 Spright Jet, 2 Spright Red, 2 Spright Carrot, 1 Melffy Pinny, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 1 Prank-Kids Lampsies, 1 Prank-Kids Rocksies, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 2 Triple Tactics Talent, 2 Prank-Kids Place, 2 Called by the Grave, 2 Spright Starter, 1 Spright Gamma Burst, 1 Spright Smashers, and then 2 Infinite Impermanence. That's going to round out our main deck there. For the extra deck, we're on 1 Herald of the Arclight, 1 Melffy of the Forest, 2 Gigatic Spright, 1 number 2 Ninja Shadow Mosquito, 1 Downerd Magician, 1 Divine Arsenal AA-ZEUS Sky Thunder, 1 Prank-Kids Meow-Keow-Mu, 1 Prank-Kids Dodo-Doodle-Do, 1 IP Masquerena, 2 Spright Elf, 1 Spright Sprind, 1 Mekk-Knight Crusadia Avermax, and then finally 1 Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. There is our list. Let's see these games now. Oh my god, I'm so excited about this first game. I actually totally forgot how good this duel was until I went to click on it here. This is going to be a good one. We're going to be going second against Scareclaw for our first duel. This opening hand is pretty good. We have Ash and Imperm going second, definitely ideal. Opponent's going to use Fenrir, but I'm not going to use either Ash or Imperm against it. I've said it a lot of times before, but I'll say it again. Negating Fenrir, generally not the best idea with either Ash or Imperm on turn 1, because there are a lot of decks that play Fenrir that aren't Kashtira, that are just using it to add a little bit of engine, and even if it is Kashtira, you have better Ash and Imperm targets. Here, very glad we did not use either on the Fenrir as we go to Ash Blossom, the Primitive Planet Reichphobia. Opponent's going to triple attack and thankfully draw 2. I was really scared they were going to rip either my Imperm or triple attack, or I mean, any of these cards, really, but this, I think, was a bit of a misplay. I mean, obviously, I don't know my opponent's hand, but I feel like ending on Fenrir and ripping your opponent's card from hand is better than drawing 2 and ending on Era. I mean, granted, they didn't know they were going to end on Era after drawing 2, but you know what I mean. We're going to Imperm the Shangri-Era here for sure. This will not only prevent a Kashtira monster from coming out of the deck, but I believe it does also stop the destruction replacement effect of the Era as well. Here I go to normal summon the Sunfish and then special the Red. Opponent unfortunately has a destructive Daruma Karma Cannon to halt me in my tracks. I will say, this is a pretty cute tech, but not the most awful idea in the world for a Scareclaw deck. Definitely not. I actually, up to this point, wasn't really sure. Well, until I saw the Karma Cannon and then definitely the Acro, but up to that point I was still considering the possibility that my opponent was on Manadium and not even Scarecrow, because they showed us Fenrir, Scareclaw Cash, Reichphobia, Lightheart, and Arrival, I think? So, like, they showed us all stuff from what I recall on turn 1 that could also be used in Manadium. That isn't necessarily exclusive to Scareclaw, like the Acro is, for example. I guess, to be fair, you could play the level 3 Scareclaws in Manadium if you really wanted to, but nobody really ever does, so. Alright, they're doing Acro and Astra here. Thankfully for me, it's not Astra Balone, because that Oh, that would have been very close to lethal. I think I would have survived. No, I don't think I would have. No, I would have. I would have survived by 200 if it would have been below here. Because it's at 3,900 and running into 0 defense mode monsters. Also, I've had people in the past ask me, why do you play Nimble Sunfish? Why don't you play Nimble Manta? I've always wondered the exact opposite about people on Pure Spright nowadays. I always see Nimble Manta and not Nimble Sunfish, and I have no idea why. Nimble Manta can summon more copies of itself if it gets destroyed by a card effect, but that is such a situational condition. Nimble Sunfish is a lot more easy to fulfill, can provide you with multiple bodies to combo with after a turn like this, and it can also aid in OTKing with the number 2 Ninja Shadow Mosquito. Ninja Shadow Mosquito plus Nimble Sunfish, if your opponent has a monster with 2,000 or more attack points, is an OTK. So, yeah, I genuinely have no idea why people would play Nimble Manta over Sunfish. That makes literally 0 sense to me. But here we are seeing a situation demonstrated where I am very, very glad we were on the Nimble Sunfish here. Alright, opponent is going to not only resolve the Maxi, but also get to Era for the Cashier Fenrir. I'm going to normal summon my Prank-Kids Rocksies, which I would have loved to see my opponent's facial reaction after dropping that here, showing that I'm clearly on, like, a Spright build, but, no, I'm just going to go for it here. Like, I'm just going for it. I don't think passing ever, like, well, they have a tryhard with, like, multiple stuff up. Passing here absolutely just loses me the duel, so, like, I can't not play into Maxi in a situation like this. Gonna Dodo-Doodle-Do for the place. I used Rocksies first because I drew it. If that's the case for you too on turn 1 as well, then I would go for a Fansies as the second Prank-Kids to send the extra place rather than yeah, have to draw it later. So it looks like they are gonna nib me here. Thankfully, that does not out my goddess. And thankfully, they actually took the bait with the Prank-Kids place that I added. Because I figured it was pretty likely they had Ash Blossom in hand. But I really want to draw 2 off this triple attack. So I'm like, I'm playing a weird build. If I activate place, they might actually just Ash it. And they did, which was cool. So the triple attack drawing 2. If I drawn Starter, I think I could have actually just gone off and found lethal. But we drew Maxx and Carrot, so I'm just going to have to pass here. However, I am passing up with a sizable Nibiru token, so there is a good shot that they might not be able to get over it. Except, oops, they can because they play Scareclaw Straddle. That'll boost this Lightheart up to 10k attack! Whoa! Very, very scary. That's going to leave me at only 800 points following the, what is it? The Destruction of the Underworld Goddess by battle here, because that's 7,200 damage. Also, the Swords of Concealing Light, while it doesn't actually affect the token, because tokens can't get flipped face down, in that regard, it does actually affect it in that the continuous effect of Swords of Concealing Light says that I cannot change the position of my monsters, so I can't switch the Nibiru token into attack mode here. However, however, I did realize here that, like, wait a second, I just have lethal here. To be fair, I should have normal summoned to Maxi, and then specialed Carrot, and then specialed Blue. That was definitely a misplay on my part to not normal summon Maxi here. But yeah, I can Ninja Shadow Mosquito, attack the Nibiru, put a counter on the Lightheart, and then yeah, now when my Carrot goes to attack, I just deal the 10k damage directly to them. I love number 2, Ninja Shadow Mosquito. That's another card that I feel like is just super slept on in Pure Spright. Like, to be fair, Spright got hit pretty hard by the ban list pretty shortly after this card came out, but I still see Pure Spright lists out there that are, like, clearly trying to OTK because they're on Cat Shark, and I don't see them on number 2, Ninja Shadow Mosquito. And, like, I don't know why. This card is great. If you're playing Pure Spright, I definitely think this card is a staple. It gets you, not only does it get you out of so many jams in terms of, like, OTKing, this is also a far better Zeus pilot than Sky Cavalry Centuria. So, like, even if you're not just OTKing, you can definitely use this card to make Zeus and just go from there. But yeah, that is going to be the first game for this video. And like I said, very, very exciting one that we get to start off with here. It was a very, very nice game against Kaiju second turn here. So, yeah, let's go ahead and see the rest of our games. All right, our next duel that we're going to show off here is going to be up against Dino Morphia, which is Not one of my most favorite rogue decks to play against, but yeah, that is what it is. We get to take the first turn here. No Prank-Kids in this hand. I did not draw a lot of Prank-Kids, funnily enough, in the few games that I played here for this video. Funnily enough, I just didn't see that many, but we can definitely just play this like a pure Spright deck. Again, that's for all intents and purposes, this is a pure Spright deck. We are only using the Prank-Kids to facilitate those pure Spright lines. So, gonna start off with normal summon Maxx. Like I said, I should have done that on the last turn of the last game, but going into our line following that, I did screw up a little bit here by making Gigantic first. You typically want to make the Sprind first, but that's fine. We can pivot into a more Sprind-focused line. What I mean by that is we're going to basically play in such a way that we're going to deliberately leave up our Melffy of the Forest as well as the Sprind on the field to potentially use the Sprind's effect on the follow-up turn. I don't advise, generally speaking, building your turn 1 board this way. I just did it here because I did things in the wrong order. The right order would be to do things the way I showed in like the combo during the deck profile, actually. Going for Sprind first, and then using Sprind to overlay into Gigantic, and then setting up the Elf. Because the problem is, if you Sprind, or if you Gigantic and then go into Sprind right afterward, that will actually leave you with a very awkward not being able to put Elf in the EMZ, if you do it in that order. So, if you make Gigantic first, make sure that you're doing Elf in the EMZ still. Because if you make Gigantic and then put Sprind in the EMZ, you can't link this off, and you've already summoned Gigantic, which means that it's going to be stuck in the EMZ, and Elf won't be able to point to anything to give it target protection. But opponent's going to Lightning Storm, trying to blow up my monsters. I'm just going to chain both the IP and the Spright Elf, which will pretty much let me fully dodge Lightning Storm. I mean, not pretty much, it will let me dodge Lightning Storm, but it does force me to use my Sprind before I get a chance to actually activate the effect. But yeah, now the Elf doesn't actually, or the Lightning Storm rather, doesn't actually end up destroying anything. Set 5 is very scary. They're going to start the Supreme King trap card, which definitely indicates to me they're Dynamorphia. I'll chain Maxx, but they actually have a second one, and believe it or not, this card is not once per turn, so summing out a couple of Zarks here, but my win con in mind at this point is just going to be the Shadow Mosquito again, so I don't even really care that these Zarks are getting summoned in defense mode. That's not a big deal. Also, they summon negated, so don't mind these effects. However, by proccing their Zark effects, they do actually allow me to activate my Melffy Catty, so I think that was actually a misplay on their part, to be totally honest, because now I can summon out the Penny. Penny can sync with the Catty in hand to go for that Herald of the Arclight, which makes me feel a lot safer about going into this turn here. They're going to respond with the Ferret Flames, try to clear my board, read bait my Herald of the Arclight, which will be successful. That will allow them to resolve the Trap Trick. Here, I'm really hoping the Trap Trick's for a Dynamorphia card and not for Ferret Flames, and surely enough, it does end up being the Dynamorphia Frenzy. Thank God, because I do have the Ash Blossom in hand to stop that. And after the Frenzy, I only have one more back row card to worry about. Again, would love to see my opponent's face after I normal summon Rocksies. And even more so after I Ash their Dynamorphia Frenzy, because after I do this, they just immediately concede. Which indicates to me that their last card was not going to be something that stopped this particular board state here. Also, although I tend to grab red in a vacuum, and generally speaking that is correct, I think, using Carrot here definitely would have been a lot better. But, you know, obviously we didn't know we were going up against Dynamorphia going first here. Alright, got a few more games, a couple more, just 2 more games to check out. Let's go into the next one. Alright, for this duel, we find ourselves squaring off against Labyrinth. Good old Lab. Let's see what they have in store for us in this game here. I think we go first again. Yep, we go first in this one. And again, not opening Prank-Kids. Like I said, that happened quite a bit in these games, but it's alright. Gonna normal summon the Carrot, special the blue. Blue F is gonna add the red, and then we're gonna get hit with the Droll and Lockbird. One thing I will say about pure Spright, in this particular meta, where Droll is very good, and of course the Super Heavy Samurai, Droll will continue to be good. I've seen people say, like, oh, watch out for Droll once Super Heavy comes out. Like, maybe this is just me, but in my experience, people have been on Droll and Lockbird. Like, it's not a matter of, like, if they end up using Droll and Lock later. It's people are on Droll and Lock, so be prepared for it. But But yeah, no, what I was going to say just is that Spright is kind of well positioned in that respect in this meta, because Droll doesn't stop Spright from making plays the vast majority of the time. The only searches we do are Blue and Jet, and it's like, the starter that Jet would get very occasionally matters to your end board, as in you can't make your an end board without it, but more often than not, you can at the very least do something like this here. And actually, if you look here, we played through both Droll and Impermanent. We still ended on Elf IP Spread, which is not a full board, but is definitely full enough of a board to play into a 3 going on 4 card hand. It's like, yeah, Spright is a very, very resilient deck. I feel like people forget that, honestly, but probably because they're just not used to playing against Spright lately. And yeah, they're just going to concede after I Ash Blossom the draw to here. Again, I thought they were going for a hand rip, which I was like, you know, I mean, it's funny. I was a little concerned because I thought they were going to hand rip the Ash Blossom, but then they chose the draw to, which is effectively hand ripping the Ash Blossom, but then they conceded in response to that. So really, the thing that I was afraid of them doing actually caused them to surrender the duel, which is kind of funny. But, yeah, we do have one more game to check out after this one. Let's go ahead and see that here. Ooh, this is another great game that I totally forgot about, that I'm super excited to show here. So, our opponent is on Bestial Punk. It is a post-bandless build, so they are not playing Chaos Ruler. Now, why play the Bestials with Punk if you're not going to be playing Chaos Ruler? Our opponent is going to show us. They're going to start with E-Tally for the Wagon. As you can see, I opened no disruption here, so kind of just have to let our opponent play things out here. Wagon is going to add the field spell, which will then be activated. And we'll summon the Zayamine to add the Ogre Dance here. That will then allow them to get a draw. Ogre Dance. I thought they drew the Ogre Dance for a second. I was like, wait, why did they reveal the draw? No, it's just the order that things went in there, so. Looks like they already had the Foxy Tune as well. Wow, they just kind of had everything here. They opened the Zayamine, they opened the Foxy Tune, and the E-Tally. That's how cracked going first hand, especially against somebody like me who doesn't have any kind of disruption for you. So, Dodo, Jam Dragon Drive. Yeah, this is all like, you know, this is all stuff that we've seen Punk do before. So, what is so special about this Punk list? Again, we shall see. We shall see. Psychic Tracker coming down next. Psychic Tracker might seem a bit weird, especially as we're sinking for 6. Like, what are we going to make? Pony's making Muddy Mud Dragon. Now, here's the thing about Muddy Mud Dragon. Muddy Mud Dragon can not only be used as a fusion substitute for any one material, but it also has an effect that allows you to just fusion summon during your main phase using monsters that you have on your field. So by using the Muddy Mud Dragon on their field, as well as the Foxy Tune they brought back with the Deer Note, my opponent is going to fuse for Albion the Branded Dragon. Yeah, it's actually not branded Punk because there isn't a full branded package in the main deck. There are no branded cards in the main deck. Our opponent is simply utilizing the Muddy Mud Dragon to go for Albion and Granganol, and then sending the Lubellion with the Granganol to then revive off of the, you know, sacking the Muddy... Or the Albion there, not the Muddy Mud Dragon. So, how cool is that? How cool of a line is this? Oh, and then they're going into Lambda using the Granganol. Oh, with the Sarnier sending the Regain. That'll make the Beast live. We then get to link off for... What is this going to be? IP Masquerena. I love to see people cooking. I love when people cook up cool stuff. And I feel like when there is a major shakeup to a deck that causes it to, like... You know, when a major card gets limited or banned like Chaos Ruler, it's like, there are two kinds of players. There are players that'll go, well, this deck is just bad now. And then there are people who will go like, no, let's see what's going on. And to be fair, the former camp of this deck is just bad now is very, 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 very occasionally correct. However, much less often than you would probably think. And again, it's like I said during the deck profile, too. It's like, I don't understand people who kind of shame this style of innovation. It's like, what is the reason to do that? I genuinely don't understand the reason to, like, shame somebody for exploring deck lines. Especially when, like, people aren't even claiming that the deck is, like, good or tier 1 or, like, broken. It's just like, you know, it's, again, that idea of calling a build cope, it's like... I don't know. I don't know if people realize when they're making statements like this, but like, you're not only contributing nothing by making a statement like that, but like, you're actively shooting somebody down who might be innovating something really, really cool. Do you really want to be the reason that deck never ends up getting made? Unfortunately, some people, the answer is just yes. Some people just enjoy being assholes, you know? Another funny thing, too, is like, whenever I point this out, there's always this subsect of people, which this is just true of the internet in general, and like, God, try being trans or queer in any regard, and you'll always face this camp of people who are like, oh, well, you're just too sensitive to handle people saying mean or bad things. Oh, what do you want the world to be all soft padded for you? And it's like, no. I point this out not to be like, you're being mean, as in, like, you know, I can't handle that, but I'm pointing this out to be like, you're being an asshole. Like, and being an unproductive asshole is just, well, it's just that. You're being unproductive and an asshole. I just truly, like, don't understand it. I don't know. Just people being negative and only shooting other people down without actually contributing anything themselves. It's like, why? Why? I don't understand it. Yeah, here I actually thought I had a chance of winning because my opponent tried to style a little bit and use the Gamma, forgetting that it was negated, and not the Appaloosa. So I'm like, wait a second. I was like, wait a second. My Nibiru resolved. Do I actually have a shot to win this duel? But unfortunately, not only does this proc Branded Regained, but Nibiru Tributing Dissipator does proc the Assault Synchron to bring it right back to the field, which is honestly hilarious and really cool. It also banished the Assault Synchron, which allowed the Dissipator to bring it back, which now allows them to go into a level 8 Synchro. So, funnily enough, what looks like a huge misplay on my opponent's part is actually still going to be enough for them to end up winning the game here. Because again, they had the Regained and the Assault Synchron and all that fun stuff. And yeah, we already know they have Etude of the Branded, so we knew they were always going to just sink for a 10 here. It's going to, of course, be the Baron de Fleur. And yeah, between battling and also activating its effect, it can always clear my board, and I'm not feeling the most optimistic about actually being able to make a comeback with this kind of a hand against this kind of a board, especially with a card like Ash Blossom. But I'm going to let my opponent finish me off here because they cooked up something really, really spicy, and I just want to see it played all the way through. So there we have it. There are our games with Prank-Kids Spright. Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, you know, I don't know. I'm not saying that this makes Spright in this iteration like a tier 1 deck again all of a sudden, but it's really, really cool. This engine adds so many 1-card starters that, again, quote-unquote, 0-card combos that fully facilitate a pure Spright board and even give you that recouped draw in the process. And yeah, I mean, this isn't something that I've seen people talk about, but from seeing one person try it, again, thank you Never in My Life for showing that replay, yeah, that inspired me to try this out and find a really cool variant in the process. And that, I think, is how we should be communicating as Yu-Gi-Oh players. It's one of the many issues I have. Like, as right now, as Yu-Gi-Oh players, we only shoot each other down as far as like the broader community conversation. And this creates a crab in a bucket kind of situation where, because we're all constantly shoving each other down and nobody's lifting each other up, you know, we don't see cool, innovative decks do well. Because again, when people try to be cool and innovate on decks, they just get shit on. So, but anyway, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you everybody so much for watching it. It does mean the world to me. Let's just go ahead and move now to our outro. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of the video. That means a lot to me. It's also a great way to support the channel, so thank you very much in that way as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other ways, like the very special patrons that I am thanking here, you can do so by checking out some of the links in the description. One of those goes to the Patreon, where you can join these fine folk and support the channel that way. I do post daily content over on Patreon, so you do get something for supporting there. And if you're interested, I also have a coaching tier option as well. Details, again, will be on Patreon in the link below. Also in the description, linked below, is my Twitch page where I stream a few times a week. You can go ahead and check that out, follow or subscribe over there if you ever want to catch me live. You'll also find my second YouTube channel if you feel like subscribing over there to watch some of the Twitch VODs as well as some additional non-Yu-Gi-Oh related content that I make over there. Again, any of those links you want to check out is all a great way of supporting. But again, even if you don't do that, just watching was also a fantastic way to support. And once again, I have to thank you so very much. But in any case, this is Hexlex. I'm going to be signing out, and I'm hoping you have a fantastic day.